Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 240. Chapter 240. Moscow's last day had come. It was a clear, bright autumn day, a Sunday. The church bells everywhere were ringing for service, just as usual on Sundays. Nobody seemed yet to realize what awaited the city. Only two things indicated the social condition of Moscow: the rabble, that is the poor people, and the price of commodities. An enormous crowd of factory hands, house serfs, and peasants, with whom some officials, seminarists, and gentry were mingled, had gone early that morning to the Three Hills. Having waited there for Raspachin, who did not turn up, they became convinced that Moscow would be surrendered, and then dispersed all about town to the public houses and cook shops. Prices, too, that day indicated the state of affairs. The price of weapons, of gold, of carts and horses kept rising, but the value of paper money and city articles kept falling, so that by midday there were instances of carters removing valuable goods, such as cloth, and receiving in payment half of what they carted, while peasant horses were fetching 500 rubles each, and furniture, mirrors, and bronzes were being given away for nothing. In the Rostovs' staid, old-fashioned house, the dissolution of former conditions of life was but little noticeable. As to the serfs, the only indication was that 3 out of their huge retinue disappeared during the night, but nothing was stolen. And as to the value of their possessions, the 30 peasant carts that had come in from their estates, and which many people envied, proved to be extremely valuable, and they were offered enormous sums of money for them. Not only were huge sums offered for the horses and carts, but on the previous evening, and early in the morning of the 1st of September, orderlies and servants sent by wounded officers came to the Rostovs, and wounded men dragged themselves there from the Rostovs and from neighboring houses, where they were accommodated, entreating the servants to try to get them a lift out of Moscow. The major domo, to whom these entreaties were addressed, though he was sorry for the wounded, resolutely refused, saying that he dare not even mention the matter to the count. Pity these wounded men as one might, it was evident that if they were given one cart, there would be no reason to refuse another, or all the carts and one's own carriages as well. 30 carts could not save all the wounded, and in the general catastrophe one could not disregard oneself and one's own family. So thought the major domo on his master's behalf. On waking up that morning, Count Ilya Rostov left his bedroom softly, so as not to wake the countess, who had fallen asleep only toward morning, and came out to the porch in his lilac silk dressing gown. In the yard stood the carts, ready corded. The carriages were at the front porch. The major domo stood at the porch, talking to an elderly woman, and to a pale young officer with a bandaged arm. On seeing the count, the major domo made a significant and stern gesture to them both to go away. "Well, Vasilich, is everything ready?" asked the count, and stroking his bald head, he looked good-naturedly at the officer and the orderly, and nodded to them. He liked to see new faces. "We harness at once, Your Excellency." "Well, that's right. As soon as the countess wakes, we'll be off, God willing. What is it, gentlemen?" he added, turning to the officer. "Are you staying in my house?" The officer came nearer, and suddenly his face flushed crimson. "Count, be so good as to allow me, for God's sake, to get into some corner of one of your carts. I have nothing here with me. I shall be all right on a loaded cart." Before the officer had finished speaking, the orderly made the same request on behalf of his master. "Oh, yes, said the count hastily. "I shall be very pleased, very pleased. Vasilich, you'll see to it. Just unload 1 or 2 carts. Well, what of it? Do what's necessary," said the count, muttering some indefinite order. But at the same moment, an expression of warm gratitude on the officer's face had already sealed the order. The Count looked around him. In the yard, at the gates, at the window of the wings, wounded officers and their orderlies were being seen. They were all looking at the Count and moving towards the porch. "Please step into the gallery, Your Excellency," said the majordomo. "What are your orders about the pictures?" The Count went into the house with him, repeating his order not to refuse the wounded who asked for a lift. "Well, never mind, some of the things can be unloaded," he added in a soft, confidential voice, as though afraid of being overheard. At 9 o'clock the Countess woke up. And Matrievna Timofina, who had been her lady's maid before her marriage and now performed a sort of chief gendarme's duty for her, came to say that Madame Schoss was much offended, and the young lady's summer dress could not be left behind. On inquiry, the Countess learned that Madame Schoss was offended because her trunk had been taken down from its cart, and all the loads were being uncorded from the luggage and taken out of the carts to make room for wounded men whom the Count, in the simplicity of his heart, had ordered that they should take with them. The Countess sent for her husband. "What is this, my dear? I hear that the luggage is being unloaded." "You know, love, I wanted to tell you, Countess dear, an officer came to me to ask for a few carts for the wounded. After all, ours are things that can be bought, but think about being left behind means to them. Really now, in our own yard, we ask them in ourselves, and there are officers among them. You know, I think, my dear, let them be taken. Where's the hurry?" The Count spoke timidly, as he always did when talking of money matters. The Countess was accustomed to this tone as a precursor of news of something detrimental to the children's interest, such as the building of a new gallery or a conservatory, the inauguration of a private theater or an orchestra. She was accustomed always to oppose anything announced in that timid tone, and considered it her duty to do so. She assumed her dolefully submissive manner, and said to her husband, "Listen to me, Count. You have managed matters so that we are getting nothing for the house, and now you wish to throw away all our children's property? You said yourself that we have 100,000 rubles worth of things in the house. I don't consent, my dear, I don't. Do as you please. It's the government's business to look after the wounded. They know that. Look at the Lapuchkins opposite. They cleared out everything 2 days ago. That's what other people do. It's only we who are such fools. If you have no pity on me, have some for the children." Flourishing his arms in despair, the Count left the room without replying. "Papa, what are you doing that for?" asked Natasha, who had followed him into her mother's room. "Nothing. What business is it of yours?" muttered the Count angrily. "But I heard," said Natasha. "Why does Mamma object?" "What business is it of yours?" cried the Count. Natasha stepped up to the window and pondered. "Papa, here's Berg coming to see us," said she, looking out of the window. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 240. I hope you enjoyed it. I will now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, day 240. Profitless. All life is entropy. This is the eternal law decreed by the ultimate legislator since the beginning of time. Eventually you and all you love will wither away to nothingness. Your parents, your children, your favorite books, all will pass. Fortunately, we must always look on the bright side. This law likewise applies to all of life's evils, like illness, war, and members of Congress. Nevertheless, despite eons of experience with the passing of things, we continue, little Countess Rostova that we are, to mourn the passing of things, rather than steel ourselves against bereavement's ceaseless assault. Today, for instance, brings Moscow's last day. Prices spike and money devalues as the Muscovites scramble in vain to hold on to what they think belongs to them. The old Count, valuing human life, offers cart space to help evacuate wounded soldiers. The old Countess, valuing possessions, berates him for his foolishness and demands the Rostovs' possessions are all properly packed and ready to go. Their fighting disturbs the house. The Count is an angered man, and the Countess is a crying mess, all because they value things not within their power to control. To what end this profitless striving after what cannot be captured? Daily meditation. Do not admire your clothes, and then you will not be angry with the thief. Do not admire the beauty of your wife, and you will not be angry with the adulterer. Learn that a thief and an adulterer have no place in the things which are yours, but in those things which belong to others and which are not in your power. If you dismiss these things and consider them as nothing, with whom are you still angry? Epictetus, the discourses. All right, that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 240. I hope you liked it. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. Links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow, we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 241. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.